Hello YouTube. Welcome back. This is BalorMage again, and we have a little bit of a crit update for our electric sentry build. For those who haven't seen it, we did a non-crit build guide a little earlier. We'll link that in the description of this video. That is the build you should be playing until at least level 90 if you want to go sentries, even maybe after that. But from 90 onwards-ish, you get access to going crit instead. And you can see in the background, it's a lot stronger. Crit numbers are very satisfying. Every time yellow numbers pop up, I get little tiny hits of dopamine. Crit is always going to be the way to go eventually, but it is very eventually in this game. You are going to be level 90 or above minimum, and you're going to need much better gear. So you do want to stick with the basic version that's non-crit for quite a while before you go into this. But let's go into game and let's go through the crit version. So this is the crit version here. I just did a dummy test on single target at level 95 with one dummy. I've got 2.6 mil. Now, we're only just starting to scale into crit right now. There's a lot of things that we could get more power on. What we are going to show you right now is that in our single target setup, we have 80% crit and only 173 crit multi, which is a little bit low. This is only the beginning of the crit. We'll go over that as we get to it. So gear wise, what are we looking at? There's a few options. Things that are important, things that are mandatory is having tier 10 sentry crit rate on your bow. That is the absolute mandatory stat. You would not even attempt to go crit without tier 10 sentry crit rate. Then we're just after as best sentry gear as we can on the bow. So sentry damage pen is good. Sentry crit damage would be way better. Sentry damage amplification is good. Sentry damage is good. Sentry attack speed is good. Any of the sentry mods to go there would be great. We're still wearing the Sea King's Brim because it does have 6 flat crit rate, 20% damage, and 7.2 attack speed. And +2 sentry rune level. Honestly, I've seen a lot of people running around with authority mods helmets that have +1 simultaneous sentry on them, so that they can summon 4 sentries instead of 3, how I summon. And I think that that's wrong. We'll go over it a little bit more, but I think the eventual plan is to have 6 total sentries, not 4 total sentries. And planning 3 at once is going to feel a lot better than planning 4 at once. Just because you'll always leave some behind, right? It's always going to be a good thing. So, what else have we got for gear? You have to go with sentry in your amulet for either the amplification or the sentry crit amulet are both fine. Try to get one with some sort of authority implicit. The suffixes on this don't really matter very much. You can only get good prefixes. There are no resistance suffixes. So eventually I would plan to re-roll this neck with some sentry defensive things on it on the suffixes, but I ran out of re-rolls. But implicit prefixes, life, sentry damage, sentry amplification, all fantastic. When it comes to rings, again, we're looking for sentry crit rate. Sentry crit rate is probably our hardest stat to come by. Sentry crit damage, also super nice. Sentry damage is good. Hit rate is irrelevant. We're not going to count that as a stat. We are hit capped on sentries. It's nothing. Install speed sounds like it's nice. Here's my other ring. Crit damage, hit rate, install, because that's just what they hit. Now, it sounds like it's nice to have install speed. It controls the rate at which you can plant your totems and then keep moving, because there's this little delay. However, you can animation cancel the entire back half of the delay of placing sentries. So you can click and then roll, and as long as you start the summon, you just roll and the summon finishes anyway. So you can just animation cancel it. So while mapping, I'm almost always going click, roll, and this has made Sentry install just a completely irrelevant stat that I just don't care about at all. So there is that. Everything else I have except this is just for defenses right now. My chest is pretty good. It's only got +2 on the rune level instead of +3, but we hit triple res, so that's nice. Everything else that I have right now is just defenses. I got a lot of movement speed, life, resistance. I do have a pair of gloves that have Sentry Elemental Pen as an implicit. That's quite a nice implicit, but again, it's just life, triple res. Same thing over here. Lots and lots of armor, life, double res. Same thing over here. Just a lot of life, more res. Plenty of implicits we could go. Plenty of ways to gear this up further. Charms, unfortunate. I still don't have the best charms in the world. But what I have been focusing on is trying to get Sentry attack speed. That's my @1 priority, is trying to get Sentry attack speed on tier 6 runes. When I can get enough attack speed, tier 6 runes on at least, at least 4 of them, I think I can replace quick attack. So we'll get to runes in a second, but I think I can take quick attack out once I have enough attack speed charms. So that's the goal for that. Let's have a look at our runes real quick. So there's a few things here. 1, my current mapping setup: quick attack, multi-shot, elemental damage amp, lightning pen, find weakness, and multi-sentry. Now, find weakness is much better than precise sentry until you can do a legendary upgrade on it. Precise sentry's legendary upgrade is much better than find weakness's legendary upgrade. So in theory, when I got to the point where I got to legendary upgrade supports, find weakness would leave and this one would go, and precise sentry would go in instead. So for now, when I want to do my big single target damage, I swap out my multi-shot, I put in precise sentry, and I use both. We also do want Mana Storm instead of Lightning Pen. Unfortunately, I haven't got Mana Storm yet, so we're just using Lightning Pen for now, but that's what we would want. And what we're hoping for in the end is that we can lose quick attack by getting enough charms, and then it'll either be that we will run find weakness and precise sentry, or we will replace that with the strike rune, which we don't have yet. So that's the plan for those. We also have our activate buff upon inflicting crowd control, which is weirdly named. This is actually when you get crowd controlled. So I have that to Shout of Justice. So it basically unfreezes me. Once every 15 seconds, I'm essentially CC immune. If you freeze me or stun me, but only once every 15.5 seconds, I'll just get out of it for free. If you freeze me a second time while it's on cooldown, I'll stay frozen forever and die. Then we get the buff activation on hit with Tenacious Regen. Both of them linked to time acceleration. We've got some increased duration on the Tenacious and Hushed Shout on the Shout of Justice. Piercing Arrow is irrelevant. It's level 1, and I use it so that I can forcibly attack golems faster, and that's the only reason it exists. And there's one very, very important rune that we don't have yet that we've been trying desperately to get the entire time. And I probably should have just whaled myself into it at some point, but I never did. And now I got too committed to not doing that. Which is it this one? No. This one right here. Enchanted Sentry. So Enchanted Sentry is a channeling skill that gives you a 15% Sentry attack speed amplification per stack with 3 stacks. So they can attack a lot faster while you're channeling. So you can see it's a channel, you have to stand still, you will take more damage while you're channeling. So it would something you would only use when you're safe and all your totems are down, but it would be a really, really, really important damage up. It would give me a lot of burst to damage whenever I was safe to do so. So we definitely want that. We've definitely been trying for it. We just don't have it yet. So let's go and have a look at our Zodiacs. Stat-wise, we have the minimum amount of decks that we needed to wear all of our gear, and then just full strength, just 100% strength. There's a good argument to be made for putting a little bit, like 60 to 80 points into int and using the elemental damage totem. Frankly, I didn't want to push another button, so I didn't do that. But plenty of people playing sentries are doing that, and it's fine. It is a button you can push to get more damage on bosses. So we like that. So let's go through in order. All the sentry damage from 1. We go to 2, exactly what you would expect. All the sentry damage, sentry attack speed nodes, no defenses needed. Then we go over to 3. 3 is a little, there's a lot of points here. I took all of the health potion cooldown stuff and the mana potion cooldown stuff. Really good wheel. You do come back to this. You don't get it right away, but it is important. Again, through here, sentry attack speed. And I went for these back two, and I'm not 100% sure I should have. I've got these back two here, but I think that I should have just taken these 3 nodes and then gone straight into filling out this wheel. But I didn't do that. So number 4, what do we got? We got attack speed, hit rate, attack speed, damage. I took this 1% regen. You don't need to. I really like sentries not dying, and this slows down their deaths a lot. We also have some floating points. You'll notice a few floating points around this tree. That's because I am 1 level short of doing a respec. I will explain the respec when I get there, but all the extra floating points that are sitting in things like 10% damage that don't go anywhere, I'll explain where they go when we get there. But you have to be level 96 to do that, so I'm not quite high enough yet. Okay, so up here to 5. Sentry crit, sentry crit, sentry crit, sentry crit. None of the others. We did not need sentry defenses. Over to 6. This is quite the wheel. So I actually think this is the only floating point here, and I actually think all of this is pretty damn important, because we've got crit rate coming up this side, which we need. We've got attack speed that's very efficient coming off it. We have sentry damage amplification, which we absolutely definitely have to have. We've got penetration, which we absolutely want to have, and more penetration, which we absolutely want to have. The only thing is, we could have taken 2 nodes here and left out one of these, and it just didn't feel right. It just didn't feel right, because if you think about it, sentry hit rate is a waste of time. We're well over hit capped. And so if we took this, it would be spending 2 points to get 10% sentry damage instead of 1 point to get 2% sentry and elemental resist. I said we don't need defenses, but if I wanted to get the 10% damage for 2 points, I can put a floating point in here anyway. So it's really a question of whether or not I would use a floating point, and right now I am, but I won't be next level, so there's no reason not to take 2 sentry elemental res. Like, it's better than having hit rate, which is irrelevant. As much as we don't care that much about sentry defenses, it's still better than having a literal wasted point. So that's quite nice. All right, 7, we're going over here. Sentry attack speed wheel, sentry crit wheel. That's it. We also did take the chaos res nodes in here. It's the only resistance nodes I've taken on the whole tree. These are not floater filler nodes. I actually really struggle to get chaos res, and honestly, I actually don't mind spending these points in chaos. Probably up to you. You can skip this if your gear's good enough, or if you're happy to just avoid chaos damage, or if you're a competent player capable of not getting hit by things. But that's not me, so I took the chaos res. We have over here for our little bit of fizz dampening and the health point amplification, so that's really, really nice. And then over here for our sentry crit. Now, we've had a few floating points around the place, and what I want to do is take this wheel. This 9% damage doesn't do anything, but 25 flat, 5%, 25 hat flat, 12% amplification, 25 hat flat, 3% amplification. So there's another 15% amp, 5% increased, and 75 flat life. here in this tree. All my floating points from the rest of the tree would all get respec'd at level 96 over to take all of these, which should give me a ton more health. I very much subscribe to I like to have an all-rounded character, no glass cannoning, anything like that. So I'm absolutely going to respec into that and get a buttload more life. As far as our ascendancies go, maximum sentry count, super important. Uplift and damage amplification, great. We've gone sentry aim because we like the crit, and then just overpower and sentry damage amplification. And then out here, we get sharpness again for the crit. We get the 12% damage amp upon 3 seconds when summoning. We get close range, so they've got point blank. They do a lot more damage if you plant them underneath things. Really only relevant for bosses because sentries can clear maps fine. And then this last point, I took modify, and it is decent damage. It is decent damage, but it is absolutely not mandatory. If you end up with attack enhanced skills that you really want to use, you could absolutely swap this one. I don't think that sentry expertise is worth it. Sentries take 5% damage taken instead. So what this does is just your sentries take damage instead of you. 5% of the damage you take, your sentries take instead. I like defenses. It just didn't feel quite worth giving up modify for, but absolutely an argument to be made for it. And if you did that, I would probably give up this 12% damage here and take pain instead, because pain is 10% increased damage taken, and it's all the time, 100% of the time. It's always on, instead of 12% damage amplification, but only for 3 seconds when you summon. So if you were to change modify and take sentry expert, I would also swap this and take pain. All right, that is all of those. I'd like to go over just a few more things really quickly that we would like to get moving forward, that if you continue forward with this crypt build, you should get. A few things. One, we really need to start getting some gear that looks like this. So we need some sentry crit damage and some sentry crit rate. And then one really juicy resist on as many different pieces as we can get. Mostly, we need to get that sentry crit rate and sentry crit damage up, but without gimping our defenses super heavily. So you can see right now, my resists are kind of okay, but my poison and fire is far too low. And if I swap on my new boots, now I'm getting poison okay, but everything else is a bit too low, and I'm not in love with it. So I have them, I have those new gloves. I just need to start slowly getting better pieces of gear in other slots, right? Try and cap our reses up at the same time. Up to you. You can skip the idea of reses and just get raw damage and up your damage by a ton. Now, this is the most important. This is my new weapon, and I haven't finished crafting it yet, but the important part is +1 maximum sentry summon count. So this makes us go from 4 sentries to 5 sentries. And what we really want is to awaken our multi-sentry support so that it also adds +1. That will give us 6. That can add between those two things. That can give us 6 simultaneous sentries. Now, the way for me to finish this is to keep re-rolling these suffixes and working on them until I get crit damage and sentry crit rate. I want sentry crit damage and sentry crit rate. And then I'm going to try and Vesper it until the sentry crit rate hits tier 10. Once our sentry crit rate hits tier 10, what the other rolls are don't even matter. It's good that they're there. It's really nice that we've got sentry damage and sentry amplification, but this +1 maximum sentry is straight up 20% more DPS. So even if your tooltip goes down, your actual damage goes up. So super important, and I'm going to really quite enjoy getting that crafted, but it is definitely a long-term plan. So there's those things, and then obviously we just get better and better resistances on our other gear, get a +3 here instead of a +2, and the more crit damage and crit chance we can get, the higher our damage will get. And that's where most of our scaling is going to come from. So, super fun. Absolutely loved sentries. I'm going to be re-rolling this character into something else today, because I want to try out some other builds, not because sentries is failing. Sentries have gone quite well, but I'm a bit of an altaholic. I want to try out some other builds. So we're going to keep playing some other things. All right, that is all. And I will see everybody next time. Goodbye.